Hey everyone, I am Victoria Colman, and in this short video I am going to talk about the cognitive processes involved in oral interpretation and why understanding them it look like a simple switching from one language to another, but actually it's one of mental tasks and speak all at the same time. Now I will talk to you about why it doesn't matter. So why does it matter to us? Because interpreting shows us what our brains are really capable of when we use two languages. As Harley said, language processing is a fast coordination between comprehension and production. By understanding how these brain processes work, students can train their attention and memory skills that make learning any language easier and more effective. The brain behind interpreting. Okay, so Franklin and Rodman remind us that comprehension happens in just milliseconds. We decode sounds, identify words, and create meaning almost instantly. Now imagine doing that while planning your next sentence in another language. That's why interpreters need, as Jensen says, the brain filters what is essential so we don't feel overwhelmed. But when too much information comes in, we can reach. So the working memory in action has four stages. One of the key elements in interpreting is working memory. Scoble and Ingram both explain that working memory temporarily calls what we hear while we prepare an equivalent in the target language. For example, if someone says, given the current economic situation, and the interpreter needs to keep that idea in mind, process it, and say it naturally in another language within seconds. But working memory has their limits. That's why interpreters use strategies like chunking, anticipating what comes next, or taking short notes to avoid overlap and keep the message clear. These four stages in working memory for interpreting are understanding what you listen, storing that information, and then speak in the target language. Now, for more recent findings on the working memory for interpreters, we have the research of Xing et al. Three study by Xing and her colleagues found that interpreters, even students in training, have a stronger working memory than people who don't interpret. So, interpreting itself can train the brain to process and reformulate information more efficiently. That means that regular interpreting practices doesn't just improve your language skills, it actually strengthens your cognitive abilities too. That's why we have the integration and production in interpreting. Interpreting is a constant feedback loop. As Harley explains, the brain is always going back and forth between understanding and speaking. Wolf, however, adds that repeated, meaningful practices helps the brain build stronger neural connections. So the more some key takeaways about this is that oral interpreting combines several mental processes like attention, memory, and speech production, all working together in real time. When language students understand these processes, they can apply the same strategies interpreters use, practicing active listening and managing mental effort. As Jensen said, teaching with the brain in mind means creating learning that matches how our minds actually work. So next time you interpret, remember, you're not just translating words, you're training your brain to think faster and more clearly. Thank you for paying attention, and I hope this video was really useful for you. Now, lastly, I give you with some references I use for this topic.